LinkedIn presents.
Welcome to the Forbes Books Podcast, where we inspire you to achieve your dreams by sharing the stories of successful leaders and visionaries. Alex Giannikoulis is a serial entrepreneur with a passion for commercializing early-stage tech, and he's already achieved 3 exits and was also a former VC who placed investments in some of the hottest startups of our time. Currently, Alex is the founder of Ivee, a platform that's revolutionizing the in-car experience for commuters. With a dashboard that connects passengers to a suite of apps and physical experiences, Ivee takes ride-hailing to a whole new level. So we're going to talk about the road he took to founding Ivee, pardon the pun, plus we'll get into the future of transportation and when autonomous vehicles might go mainstream. Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thanks, Alex. So let's start by talking about acronyms. Business people love acronyms, and Ivee is considered a MaaS. Can you tell me what a MaaS is?
Yeah, mobility as a service is the acronym for MaaS. It basically means purchasing transportation as a service or a one-off on a scheduled ride or on-demand ride, for example. Most use cases people think of would be ride hail. It could be purchasing even a bike or a shared scooter to get to a last mile destination. But you're purchasing transportation on a per use basis, essentially, instead of owning the asset, you're using a shared asset.
And for most people, like you said, they're familiar with the rideshare aspect of it. So where does Ivee fit into this rideshare aspect of it?
Yeah, maybe just the genesis of Ivee to kind of give you. So prior to starting Ivee, I was venture investing for 3 years with a company called Graphene Ventures. We had made several investments, but 2 of them were in the mobility as a service space. One of them was Lyft, and one of them was Zoom. And Zoom does pickup and drop off of children. So when you start to see there's a few $1 trillion of a market moving people around, it's something we do on a daily basis. We get into a vehicle. That's a pretty big, huge market. So we started looking at what comes next in mobility as a service. And at that time, autonomous vehicles were a really big deal. So I was there from 2015, 16, and 17. And so, autonomous vehicles, the next thing. And then I started thinking about, well, what comes when you have a fair amount of autonomous vehicles around? What's going to differentiate one company from another? What's going to influence profits or growth? And the thing I kept coming back to was the time spent in vehicle or in transit. That's very valuable for a consumer, right? What is that time spent? How do I use that time? It's also very valuable for the provider, for the company that's providing that service. And so we started asking ourselves the question at Ivee, how do you make a traditional ride better, right? How do you make it go above a 5-star experience? So we play in the in-vehicle experience space inside of mobility as a service.
Got it. Interesting. And so it's funny, with your background in VC, and you've also, I believe, had 3 exits. Mm-hmm. Is it almost like a hack for you because you know what like the venture world will be looking for in any kind of startup because you sort of know how the sausage is made, so to speak? When you were developing the idea for Ivee, you were like, oh, okay, if I was a venture capitalist, I would be interested in this.
Yeah, it helps to have done both sides of the table. I spent 15 years as an operator. So that helped me, especially on early stage companies and commercializing technology. And then I did have the finance background that helped around the venture side. What I did learn going into it is you get in the back of the line and start from the beginning. You still got to get out your proof points. So yeah, you have a good market thesis. That's great. But investors, are primarily financially driven, right? It's not just a big thesis, right? They still want to see that this is a product that can generate big returns. So yeah, it helped get the leg up, I'll tell you that. But then you still got to go through the same, diligence and the same kind of regimen that everybody else does.
Okay. And you were talking about improving the experience of these vehicles. So are you almost getting ahead of the game? Are you giving yourself a bunch of, runway? Because is this for experiences in automated vehicles, or can you have Ivee in regular ride shares right now? What is the thought process in terms of like the end game for Ivee?
Yeah, that's great. Certainly end game is autonomous vehicles that are either robo-taxis or ones that you own that become autonomous. So think of at some point, the Teslas that are self-driving today become full self-driving, and then you become a passenger, not a driver. What happens with your time? So that future is not so far off. When I founded Ivee in 2018, that seemed like it was far off. Now that keeps coming closer. So that's certainly end game, right? what do we do to get between now and the end game? There are 6 million rides per day reserved just in the United States from ride-hail experiences. So my thought was, there's your test bed. Go and build something immediately right now, listen to consumers and iterate on your product in real time. So that's what we did. We went into ride-hail vehicles on Uber and Lyft platforms in LA and Miami. Then we started taking that into black car vehicles that exist today. And eventually we'll be in self-driving cars as well. So there's kind of a several stair steps you can get before you get to the end game.
Okay, so let's break down the hardware and the software. What's the hardware that's going to be that? Well, I guess it's currently in these vehicles right now.
Well, where we've landed is put a tablet inside the vehicle and make it an intelligent vehicle, right? So the last connected surface basically is the car. Everything else you have is connected. You've got a smartwatch, you got a smart thermostat, a smart fridge. The car is still very non-intelligent, especially for a passenger. You get in and you're looking at 1970 technology. You got a radio in the front and a seat in the back. That's pretty much it. But when you look at self-driving car concepts, really wonderful things that like the Toyota group has done, the Daimler group has done, right? There's a really cool interior that's created. What we've done to start is just make that vehicle intelligent. Put a tablet inside the vehicle. Think of it as an in-flight entertainment tablet, or the best of an in-flight magazine or in-flight commerce, right? You can combine that digitally into the tablet. And we are looking to personalize that. When you get in, it should greet you. Hey, Joe, welcome back, right? It should have some intelligence about your preferences, things you've liked during your journey or where you're going. And then your applications should follow you. So your Spotify, your Netflix, even your Zoom and your calendar should just follow you into any Ivee-enabled vehicle seamlessly. No messing with the Wi-Fi and with the Bluetooth. You just get in and it knows you, it knows where you're going, and it adapts to you. So all of those things are the elements that we've started building into our product.
Wow. So, all right. So now the software part of it. So are you creating your own operating system for this, for every, so when people step in the car, the operating system knows to, okay, cool. Alex likes Spotify. Alex likes Netflix. These apps are going to be available. Is it ground up kind of stuff you did there, Alex?
Yeah, great. So let me separate out the hardware stuff. You mentioned that. So the hardware today we're using is off-the-shelf Android tablets. And we've partnered with automotive manufacturers, automotive suppliers for other elements in the vehicle. So anything that's hardware related, we're either doing we do through partners.
Okay.
One of the partner groups is the Toyota group, right? We had showcased at CES an immersive experience. Their hardware that's powered by our software. For our software, what we do today, it's an application that goes into a vehicle, and everything in the cloud is what we're powering. You can imagine, Joe, that some of that intelligence could go into other vehicle types. It could go into other form factors. So that's why we focus solely on the software.
So in other words, some cars, as you mentioned, some of them are built in the 70s, but some are a little more modern. So they do have the built-in screen. And so in essence, you can use your software in screens that are already built into vehicles that they're making right now.
Yeah, most people think like rear seat entertainment built for children, right? Please pacify them. I have a long trip. Watch some kind of Disney movie. Those are probably the first way to connect the intelligent experience for each of the passengers. We can enable those if you already have those, or we can ship out if you don't already have those in your passenger vehicles.
Cool. And you sort of alluded to the experience, but talk to me. So if I were to go into one of these ride-hail situations, I'm connected with Ivee. When I go into the backseat, you say it'll say hello to me, but then it'll also have my apps. How does this sounds like this is like nuclear like fission here? Like how does this all work? It seems a lot more complicated than you made it seem, Alex.
Simple thing today. Think of it as in-flight entertainment. You get in, if you wish to interact with it, there's a certain amount of content you can discover there. You can control the music in the vehicle. But if you wish to not interact with it, it's not going to know you. It's not going to video loop. It's not going to play crappy stuff. It's not taxi TV. That is built for an advertiser, not a passenger. Where it will go next is what you're talking about, is the applications that follow you. That's actually simpler than you think from a user experience perspective, because you're reserving a car today, so it knows who you are, and you have some preferences normally. Now, those preferences are very limited because you can't do anything in the car, but imagine that you had an Ivee experience that allowed you to register your favorite applications or some of your favorite preferences. While I'm coming back from the airport, I like to be in down tempo mode. When I'm going out at night, these are the kinds of food preferences I have. How do we then make it intelligent when you come into the vehicle? Those are the things we'll release next.
Cool. Oh, that's awesome. It's funny. You mentioned taxi TV. And when I first heard about you guys, the first thing I was thinking about was, oh God, another way for Jimmy Fallon to scream in the back of a cab in New York City. Anyone who's ever been in New York knows that is one of the worst. I mean, it's hard enough to get around through New York, but then to have Jimmy Fallon scream at you in the back seat, I'm like, no, it can't be this. How do you prevent, or I guess it's the way it's created, but how do you prevent it from becoming more of an annoyance as opposed to being an incredible experience with Ivee?
It's a great question. Okay, so first of all, learnings as a founder going into it. I've never been in a company where you've had an anchor product that really sucks, right? And there's a good and bad of it. The good of it is that you can only get better than that, right? You got to be able to get better than that. The bad of it is people tend to have a negative perception, and so you have to change people's behavior. That a perception of this thing is annoying and not built for you. So what we did, to answer your question, you need to design the product for the right stakeholder. And so our product is built for the passenger. So when I say we personalize the passenger experience, that means you are a stakeholder. Mm-hmm. Taxi TV has built that product for an advertiser. They will blatantly say things like, we have a captive audience. And Joe, I hear that and I think, oh, there's a hostage in the room, right? You can't get out of this moving vehicle unless you get out of a moving vehicle, right? So just simple. That may sound really simple, but taking the decision that we're building for the passenger and everything we do is built with that to become a trusted utility for them where we can create a relationship, that's great. Now, how you monetize it from there, then you can do a whole bunch of stuff. You could have it as a subscription basis, just like you have, like a Sirius XM, for example, right? You have a subscription for that. You could put it only in premium vehicles. You could have commerce. I mentioned kind of like duty-free elements, right? Like in flight. If that was intelligent, you could monetize it that way. And then you could also have advertising, but advertising that you choose to interact with or that is part of your journey, not interrupting your journey. So those are the design principles that are built once you know that you're building for the passenger.
And once you've built this, you know what you're doing, you know who it's for. You talked about your partnerships, and it sounds like a company like this, a MaaS service, partnerships is basically your bread and butter. If you don't have partnerships, Ivee doesn't exist. I probably don't need to tell you that, Alex. So talk to me about developing these partners. You mentioned being at CES with Toyota. That can't be easy. Like, how do you get in a room with Toyota and be like, hey, listen, I've got this way, you guys are doing okay, but I got something for you that's going to be really good. It's going to knock your socks off. How did that happen?
So, you got to start at the bottom and prove out that your product works. And so getting proof points was the first part of our journey. We did that for several years and iterating and showing and figuring out with real data. The good thing is there's real passengers using it, and that helps. The second part is understanding what these big partners, what the problem is you can solve for them. So once we solve for the passenger, we solve how do you help make the most of your time? How can we make your trip better? How can we make the most of your time? Then the other part we have to solve is how do you make it better for the company that's working with us? And, the venture world and what I had learned there is mobility as a service is a very low margin business. So is automotive. You're talking about like single digit profit margins. So how you help them, how you help those partners is to show them that ours is a value add for you, right? We can help you earn more profits. And the monetization methods I mentioned earlier, those are the ways we show that they can monetize this.
Interesting. And talk to me for folks who weren't able to go to CES. I hear it's a good time. I'd love to go to CES one of these days. I'm not sure if you had been there before. Talk to me about what you showed the people there, because there's a lot of people invested in all sorts of verticals, not just the MaaS, and not just automotive, but all of them. What's it like, and what do you think you got out of being at CES?
The Consumer Electronics Show is the world's largest technology show. About 150,000 people from all over the world convene into Las Vegas for 4 days in January. And what I would describe to somebody is it's like stepping into the future, right? So you get to see all kinds of verticals that are tech enabled and stepping into what is coming next. So you get to literally peek into a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year horizon. I would definitely encourage it as even a weekend getaway with friends, just to walk the show and kind of feel out that you'll get very inspired by really wonderful design and ideas of what come next. What did we get out of it? So this was the first year that we were on the show floor. We were in the West Hall with the Toyota group, and we got to demonstrate the Ivee immersive experience. So in the Toyota group, there's a group called Toyota Boshoku that does interior supply of seats, lighting, and other elements for a vehicle. And we were able to show that our software was powering an immersive experience which had a privacy audio bubble. So if you and I sat next to each other, I couldn't hear your content. We'd be in our own little bubble. If you come out of your seat to kind of move forward, you can no longer hear your content. So
Wow.
Toyota Bush Hook has done a great job of creating this sound bubble that only you can hear. It had haptic elements. So in the mid part of the seat, not only are you watching or seeing your content, but you're feeling it. So yeah, we had like a Top Gun trailer, so it would shake when you were watching it, right? And then you had lights, right? So you had mood-based lighting. So we had a spa-like experience, which allowed you to had kind of a low hue, kind of purple lighting with like mellow kind of haptic feedback to help you, right? So for us, being showcased and recognized for our technology, that was wonderful. And then obviously really good partnerships that have come out of that from CES.
That's awesome. That sounds cool. And how stressful was that for you? Because this was basically your coming out party. You've been building this up for 2 or 3 years, but this is the first time where, like you mentioned, thousands of people were going to experience what Ivee is at the same time. How nerve-wracking was it? And how did you end up feeling at the end of it? Did it require a lot of alcoholic beverages to get you through it at the end of the night? Like, what was that like, that whole experience?
No, that's great. Look, fortunately, the product we were using is the product that's been proven out in the field. So I wasn't worried about the product. We didn't build demoware, right? We took an existing set of product that we had, started integrating with hardware that they had. So that part was least worry. The getting to the show and prepping some of that PR element, some of the partners and showcasing, and just the logistics of it. That is tolling for any company, definitely a startup, but it's a great show, man. It's all worth it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congrats for that. I want to dip into your past a little bit because you mentioned that you did some investing work for Graphene Ventures. And I remember seeing something where Graphene at one point invested like $50 million into Snap. And I don't know if you can go into the inner workings, but I'm just more curious. For folks not familiar with the VC world, when a VC dedicates so much money into one project, how do they know it's successful? Is it just like, hey, we put X money in, 2X came back? Just that, if you could satisfy my curiosity, how does a VC know that their investment has paid off?
That's really good. Yeah. So biggest parameter would be the total addressable market. How big is that TAM that they talk about, right? And then if you can take a percentage of how big that business could be that someone is building, and then you take down what is your percentage into that business, that's kind of your rubric, right? How do I know how big this potential could be? So perhaps 50 million, 100 million, or 250 million that somebody places in a very large TAM could be seen as a very small percentage if you really believe that this company is going to do really well. So think of it all as relative, right? Relative to the total market size. And then the back of the envelope calculation in most of the venture funds is, can you 10x your investment? Can one of your investments carry the entire fund, right? If it's big enough and has that big of a pop, then the amount you put in can be, you might say that amount was small, right? You should have put in more. So just think about those kind of elements as like, if this becomes very big, has a very, very, very big upside, how big could it be? Another kind of feedback from like in venture is you can't lose more money than you put in. That sounds kind of funny, but there is no downside, right? The downside is just the amount that you put in. So then you got to just figure out, is your upside big enough to cover a potential zero? And that's why they do that kind of 10x factor.
Interesting. Okay. It's Alex. It's funny because as you can tell, I'm not a business person. So I always try to look for analogies. And the way you described what venture capital is like, it's almost like publishing. A publishing company will put out thousands of books a year, but 2 or 3, like a Malcolm Gladwell, will float the company for like the next decade.
Yeah.
Is that sort of how it is with venture capital, where you're investing in so many different things, but 1 or 2 it's like the old cliche, rising tides, blah blah blah. Is that generally how it is in venture?
Right. I mean, your outliers carry the rest of your product suite or portfolio. I'm sure publishing's that way. I'm sure studios are similar. It's the reason why you've got these franchises that do so well. Those carry everything else, the kind of indie films or the kind of rom-coms, but you've got these like Avenger movies that carry everything else. I think that's similar. You get in something that can carry a lot of your return with one or two of your investments. Yeah.
All right. And then when you have that mindset, how does gambling come into play? Because, and what I mean by that is if you know that you're going to pop with two or three, but maybe this one, I'm not sure about this one, but I know I have these two or three in my pocket. Let me try this one. And I know you guys, you business dudes, you got a lot of math, you guys got a lot of pie charts and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, gut, I'm sure, plays into it. So how did you deal with that when you were on the venture side?
That's really good, actually. Venture investing tends to be much earlier than, it'll be much earlier than private equity, right? Or stocks that have a lot of backward looking data. So you don't have 3 years financial, you don't have profitability. So there is a portion where like, hey, this is the market thesis and the numbers all stack up. And then to your point, the art part of it, not just the science, but the art is, will it work? Do I have a gut feel? And so the kind of emotional checks that people will do at that time is the team composition, right? Is this a leader that has tenacity? Is this a team together that can make it? Like those things are tough to put into, a formula, right?
Yeah.
And so there is a bit of that, and that's kind of where the gambling perhaps there's a gut feel to that.
Yeah, I guess in that world, the word gambling probably didn't come up much. I'm sure there was a more like Northwestern University type word that you guys used there to make it sound like it wasn't gambling, right?
Yeah, risk return calculations. They
There
dress
it
it
is,
up.
there it is.
They dress
Nice.
it up anyway, but it is at the end of the day, you got to make a decision. And I think as long as you cover the science part, then it's up to the partner on, hey, I've done some pattern matching. Hey, I figured this out. Hey, I thought this.
Cool. And so we talk about venture, and you mentioned a little private equity there, but let's talk about angel investing, because from what I understand, you're a serial entrepreneur, few exits out there, but this is the first time you're doing angel. First, let's start with why you're taking angel investors now and the impact it's had so far on Ivee.
So the three previous exits I had, one, I was an employee at a venture-backed company, employee number 12 out of college. The second one was my own company. I didn't take any other money. I made it profitable every year. And so it was cash flow positive and took it that way. The third, I'd come in, a friend's company, to help him basically turn around. So he'd already taken his money and he needed help commercializing it. So this venture with Ivee, I put in a majority of the funds, then family did. And then we needed more capital to grow. And we came in and started raising money in February of 2020.
Good time.
Yeah, great time. So we had to hunker down for a couple of months and then go out and go to angel investors. And they've carried us for a number of years. They've been fantastic. I had not gone to angels before, but I'll tell you is they live up to their names. There are some really great people that have not just wealth, but have soul, right? That are very giving, generous, and help in more than just financial ways. I have a wonderful angel investor who always reads our newsletter, finds something really positive, pushes that out, and also finds ways to help every single newsletter update. And it makes sense. He's a very successful angel investor as well. And I've got others that are just great people. I think I'd encourage, if anybody does that, does go down the angel route, I believe you'll be pleasantly surprised with there are a lot of great people out there. Yeah.
Boy, it seems like it's a scary world, because it's almost like, again, for the analogies, it's like Wizard of Oz, because you're essentially like looking for people that have like all of this magic, and it's not just money, but it's like you're talking about the inspiration, the drive. It's because it's not just about money when it comes to an angel. I mean, how do these people exist? Like, where do you find them? Because there's a lot of people with money out there, but sometimes there's a lot of people with money who don't have sort of the right mindset or the right drive to help a company. So how does that sort of alchemy work?
Yeah, value-added investors you look at. So you kind of say, hey, here's where I need some help. You kind of start to think about where in my business could I use some help? Who's done this before? So entrepreneurs that have done this before, people that are in a C-suite that are in big companies that could help you. You'll find people that will help you in different parts of your business. And then there's traditional angel networks, right? People that have raised their hands that I'm in an angel network. You can pitch to an angel network. So there's a variety of outlets. And I would just say that a lot of these are, former operators or entrepreneurs that also want to give back, and their strategic value add goes to help you solve problems that very few others have solved before, or have network connections like in an industry that you need to be in. So there's plenty of pockets of them, and we've just been blessed to have really great ones. All on our cap table have been really all very helpful for our business.
Hmm. We started the convo, Alex, talking about sort of the runway that you've built up that, eventually this all leads to Ivee being in autonomous vehicles, improving the customer experience while in the vehicle since they're not driving. Do you have a number for that? Like, because the debate of autonomous vehicles, every once in a while, Alex, I don't need to tell you, there's a random story about someone gets hit by an autonomous vehicle. So every time you hear that, it feels like the autonomous vehicle track takes two steps back. Do you have a goal in your mind where not that they'll be 100% mainstream, but they will become more readily available outside of like Austin, Texas, or, one of these tech friendly environments? Is there a number in your brain right now where you see like 2028, 2030? Like what number does that look like in your brain?
Yeah, you covered it, because I think most people think kind of binary. AV will be here. When will it be 100%? That's not the right question, right? You're already not thinking that way,
Yeah.
which is helpful. So for me, I try to help people understand that AV is already here, right? So when I started it in 2018, Ivee started in 2018, right? There weren't commercially available robo-taxis that you can pick up with no one driving you around. Now in the United States, in 5 cities, not just Austin, like you mentioned, but Miami, San Francisco, Phoenix, Las Vegas, even Los Angeles, they have pickup and drop off with no one at the wheel, which tells me that their technology has been proven, right? They had to prove to city officials with an assistant, with a driver, someone in the driver's seat to take over if needed. They proved that out. And now not just one company, but several companies, General Motors, Cruise, Google's Waymo, all have these operating robo-taxis just in the United States. Yeah. So if you start to think about that today, and then if you think about how many self-driving Teslas are out there today, right? These are people who, it's not really fully ready. I mean, Elon Musk likes to say that it's fully ready, but they are doing self-driving rides today. It'll come in step changes. They'll start to say, oh, wow, I've seen more and more of these. And I will just say that the number of accidents that take place, I would encourage people to read beyond the headline. Most of those are either someone else hit the self-driving car, right? Like, Joe, the car comes to a complete stop. I am a driver. I do not come to a complete stop at a stop sign. Boom, there's an accident, right?
Right.
Or the number of accidents that are done per mile from a self-driving car is far lower, almost 10x lower, right, than a driver-led car. So all we got to get over there, Joe, is trust. Do I trust that this computer will do the right thing? And I think that just over time, that'll happen.
I'm going to put my devil's advocate hat on here. So let me put it on here. Why? Why do we need self-driving? Why do we need robo-taxis? Why? We got plenty of humans on this planet, Alex. I'm a guy who's like, I don't get this. What do we need this for? Why? What's the selling point for autonomous vehicle?
I'll give you a few. Today, people spend 1 hour of their time driving around in a vehicle. So for us, for Ivee, what matters is that time converted to something more productive, more relaxing, more entertaining, more educational, whatever it is. That time at some point you go like, oh, wow. As soon as that cost comes equal to or less than me operating my own vehicle, insuring it, parking it, buying it, fueling it, as soon as that comes pretty close to parity, why am I still driving myself, right? That's one element. The other element is safety. I mean, most of these companies are talking about, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the past, probably about 5 years, the amount of fatalities from driving has increased. Part of it has been distracted driving. Part has been bigger vehicles. But that is one thing that we can start to solve, especially when you have a vehicle that has cameras all over it, always on, has sonar and LiDAR. So safety is another element. In the commercial driving space, like trucking, there aren't enough truck drivers. People are always like, oh, you're going to replace drivers. And they have trouble getting enough drivers.
Yeah.
So there's a variety of ways that this technology will be here. But when it comes, you're going to start to see like, oh, this is so much better, right? So you'll see elements of it now.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to take my devil's advocate hat off right now. And in closing, let's go. You're very future forward. Let's say CES 2033. So 10 years from now, what is Ivee going to be doing at CES 10 years from now?
Oh, that's really good. The way that we started our journey has been inside the vehicle, right? In vehicle experience enhanced. That's the acronym. Ivee will move beyond the vehicle. So you'll be at different touch points before the ride, during the ride, after the ride, and we'll be in different vehicle types. So not just a traditional car, you'll start to see us in other elements. That could be a train, it could be a plane, and so forth. But anywhere you're spending time going, someone else is moving you around. How can we make that more convenient, more intelligent, better for the passenger? You'll see us in many form factors.
Sweet. All right. Well, maybe I'll go to that CES in 2033. We'll hang out. You'll be chilling because, like you said, I know this works. It's all good, but it's going to be a blast. I can't wait to see what happens next with Ivee. But Alex Giannikoulis, has been a great conversation, and good luck with the Ivee.
Much appreciated. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. And that's it for this episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe so you automatically receive new episodes when they're dropped. And if you have a moment, a review would be greatly appreciated on Apple or Spotify. It would help more amazing entrepreneurs like you find the show. Let's connect on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.